Emotional exhaustion isn't a mysterious condition that suddenly appears. It's the natural result of what happens when our environment stops rewarding us properly for our efforts. To truly understand it, we need to look at what's happening around us, not just what's happening inside us. Think of yourself as constantly responding to your environment. When you do something and get a positive result, praise, accomplishment, payment, or simply the satisfaction of finishing a task, you're more likely to keep doing it. But when you have to work harder and harder for the same rewards, or when the rewards disappear altogether, your behavior naturally changes. Imagine a worker who starts a new job full of energy. At first, they receive recognition, feel accomplished, and see the results of their work. But over time, the workplace changes. They're expected to do more for the same pay. Praise becomes rare. Criticism increases. Deadlines tighten. Threats about job security become common. What happens next isn't a personal failure, it's a predictable response to these changed conditions. When your efforts stop producing good results, you naturally start pulling back. You might do the minimum required instead of going above and beyond. You disconnect mentally even while physically present. This isn't laziness or lack of motivation. It's your natural adaptation to an environment that no longer rewards your best efforts. Laboratory experiments with animals show the same pattern. When actions stop producing rewards, activity levels decrease. It's a universal response, not a character flaw. The situation becomes even worse when workplaces rely primarily on fear and threats. Instead of working because it feels good or produces positive outcomes, you're working mainly to avoid negative consequences, criticism, job loss, or conflict. This creates a particularly toxic pattern. Your work becomes mechanical, uninspired, and minimal. You feel anxious because you're constantly avoiding punishment rather than pursuing rewards. These feelings aren't weaknesses. They're the natural emotional consequences of working under constant pressure and threat. The physical symptoms that accompany emotional exhaustion, constant tiredness, trouble sleeping, getting sick frequently, aren't just in your head. When you exist in an environment full of unpredictable stress and insufficient rewards, your body stays in a constant state of alert. Your stress response system never fully turns off. This takes a real physical toll over time. It's your body responding logically to an illogical situation. What about the mental fog, difficulty concentrating, trouble solving problems, and the cynicism that often develops? These also make perfect sense from a behavioral perspective. Complex mental tasks require you to maintain focus through multiple steps, with each small step providing a bit of satisfaction that keeps you going. When your environment stops providing these small satisfactions, the chain breaks down. You can't concentrate because the intermediate steps no longer feel rewarding. Cynicism develops after repeated experiences where what people say doesn't match what actually happens. If your boss constantly talks about work-life balance but punishes you for leaving on time, you learn to distrust those words. Traditional approaches to burnout often make a critical error. They assume the problem lies within the person. They suggest you need better coping skills, more resilience, a better attitude, or stress management techniques. But this misses the point entirely. If you place any person in an environment with poor conditions, where effort isn't rewarded, where punishment is common, where expectations are unreasonable, they will eventually show signs of exhaustion. It's not about individual weakness. It's about environmental reality. The real solution requires changing the environment, not fixing the person. Organizations need to examine how they reward their employees. Are people recognized frequently enough for good work? Do specific efforts lead to specific positive outcomes? Has fear replaced encouragement as the main motivator? Is the work itself structured in a way that provides natural satisfaction through completion and skill development? These are the questions that matter. Effective solutions require looking at three things together: what happens before a behavior, the behavior itself, and what happens afterward. What situations lead to exhausted behavior? What keeps it going? Interestingly, exhaustion itself sometimes gets rewarded. When you're exhausted, people might reduce your workload, give you sympathy, or stop demanding so much. Without recognizing these patterns, we can't create real solutions. Humans have a unique characteristic that complicates this picture. We respond to words and rules, not just direct experience. When you're told you must work harder with fewer resources, when promises of rewards never materialize, when rules constantly change without clear logic, this verbal confusion disrupts your ability to work effectively. You can't figure out what behaviors will lead to what outcomes, so you become paralyzed or erratic. The prescription is straightforward. Create clear, consistent patterns of reward and consequence. Provide frequent positive recognition for desired behaviors. Minimize fear-based motivation. Structure work so that completing tasks and developing skills feels naturally rewarding. Train managers to give immediate, specific feedback rather than vague criticism or delayed responses that come too late to be useful. Recovery from emotional exhaustion requires environmental change first, personal intervention second. If possible, remove yourself from the depleting situation. Rest isn't a luxury. It's necessary for behavioral recovery. Gradually reintroduce rewarding activities, starting with simple things that reliably produce positive feelings. Rebuild your capacity step by step through small successes. Prevention works better than cure. Organizations that regularly reward good work, that structure jobs to provide natural satisfaction, that minimize fear-based management, these environments produce sustained, effective performance without burning people out. This isn't about being nice. It's about applying practical principles that actually work. Emotional exhaustion, properly understood, happens when environmental conditions systematically fail to support healthy behavior. The solution isn't to make people tougher. It's to create environments that naturally sustain effective, satisfying work through appropriate rewards and consequences. When we get the environment right, people naturally thrive. When we get it wrong, even the strongest people eventually break down. It's time we stopped blaming individuals and started fixing the systems that exhaust them.